Welcome to the Explainer. You know, in economics, we spend a lot of time talking about the buyer, about demand. But today, we're going to flip the script. We're looking at the other side of that transaction, the seller. Let's dive into the world of supply. I mean, have you ever really thought about it? It all comes down to a whole series of decisions that sellers are making every single day. If you can understand their perspective, you're halfway to understanding why the whole market moves the way it does. So here's our game plan. We'll start by getting inside the seller's head. Then we'll cover the golden rule of supply, see what happens when the whole game changes, and put supply to a little stretch test. And finally, we'll see where it all comes together with demand.
All right, let's get into it. And to make this all feel a bit more real, we're going to follow a local baker. We'll see how she decides just how much bread to put on the shelves each morning.
Okay, here's the official textbook definition. Now, the two most important words on this slide are willing and able. You see, a producer can't just want to sell something. They also have to actually have the ability to make it and get it out the door.
So, let's break that down. What does it really mean? First, just because our baker offers, say, 100 loaves for sale doesn't mean all 100 are actually going to get sold. It's just an offer. Second, she needs that desire to sell. That's the willingness. And she needs the flour, the oven, and the staff to do it. That's the ability. And third, supply isn't just a static number. It's a flow. We measure it like loaves per day or cars per month. Now let's get to the real core of it all. This is the one principle that drives pretty much every decision our baker makes. It's all about the fundamental relationship between the price she can get for her bread and how much she decides to bake. This table, called a supply schedule, basically lets us peek inside her head. Just look at the difference. At only 1 rupee per loaf, it's barely worth her time, right? So she only makes 5. But crank that price up to 5 rupees? Whoa! The potential profit is so much higher that she has a massive incentive to fire up the ovens and bake 65 loaves. And this, right here, reveals what economists call the law of supply. If we were to plot these points on a graph, they'd make a line that goes up and to the right. It's a really simple, direct relationship. A higher price means a higher quantity supplied. Simple as that. But, here's the thing. A seller's world isn't just about the price of their product. All sorts of other things can happen that completely change their entire business plan, no matter what the price is at that very moment. And this is a super important distinction to get. The difference between a movement and a shift. A movement along the curve is just our baker reacting to a price change for bread. That's it. But a shift of the entire curve, that means something fundamental has changed in her business. Like maybe she bought a new, faster oven that lets her bake more bread at every single price level. The whole curve moves. So, what kind of things can cause a total shift? Well, a whole bunch actually. If flour gets more expensive, her costs go up, and the supply curve shifts to the left. Less supply. But if she gets that fancy new oven, her costs go down, and the curve shifts to the right. More supply. Even things like new government taxes or another bakery opening up down the street can shift the entire supply curve. So, we know that price changes things for a seller, but the big question is, how much does it change things? Not every producer can react in the same way. The way we measure that responsiveness is called elasticity. Think of it like a stretch test for their business. The official definition is all about responsiveness. I mean, it's really asking a simple question. If the market price for your product suddenly jumps up by, say, 10%, by what percentage can you increase your production to cash in on that? For some things, it's pretty easy, right? Think about a coffee shop. If the price of coffee goes up, they can brew more pots, maybe call in another barista. They can ramp up production pretty quickly. That is what we call an elastic supply. But on the flip side, what about something like a cruise ship? If prices for cruise ship tickets double overnight, you can't just, build another one by Tuesday. It takes years of planning and resources. Supply is super slow to respond. That's an inelastic supply. This number here tells the whole story. An elasticity score of 4 is considered highly elastic. It means supply is incredibly responsive to price. Just a little bump in price can cause a huge jump in production. Okay, so we've got a really good handle on the seller side of the story. But here's the thing, sellers don't operate in a vacuum. To find out what the price will actually be, we have to bring in the other side of the equation, the buyers and their demand. This slide brings it all home. Check it out. At a high price of 5 rupees, our baker is thrilled to supply 31 loaves, but buyers only want 6. That's a surplus, lots of leftover bread. At a low price of 1 rupee, buyers are clamoring for 31 loaves, but she's only willing to make 6. That's a shortage. But look right there in the middle, at that magic number, 3 rupees.
At exactly 3 rupees, the number of loaves buyers want, 19, is the exact same number of loaves our baker is willing to supply. This is the sweet spot. It's called equilibrium, or the market clearing price. No surplus, no shortage. The market is perfectly in balance. And as our source material puts it so well, this isn't just some random point. It's the one unique spot where both the buyers and the sellers are satisfied with the price and the quantity. It's the natural, efficient results when the forces of supply and demand do their dance. And that's really the seller's side of the story, from one baker's daily choice to an entire market finding its perfect balance. But I'll leave you with a final thought. What happens if a new technology suddenly makes baking way cheaper for everyone? We know that shifts the supply curve, so how does that move the market's sweet spot? It just goes to show you these forces are always in motion.